Most racing drivers won't claim to be big fans of chicanes, so unfortunately for those that have a great aversion, today we've got an overabundance of them. Time to work on your precision as we get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 14 Club Class, and you'll see it all live here on RaceSpot TV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ron Mons. Behind the scenes is our director, Hugo Louise. Well, we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. All right, Ron, we are into the penultimate round now. It is getting down to crunch time.
Oh, it absolutely is. As much as chicanes may be the word of the day here around Zolder, there's another word that starts with C that I think is going to be popping into these drivers' heads, and that is championship. With only 2 races left to go from this season, a lot of these drivers are going to be eyeballing this one race that we've got here from this series in the month of November to try and set themselves up as best as they can in the driver standings.
Which, as you can see, Ryan Cowley right now sitting in a very good position, and that's because he's got pretty much all wins in his hands right now. His drop round is Spa, the first race, the only one that he hasn't won so far here in the club class, with Kellen Heimbucher trailing by a decent amount, but not impossible to overcome at this stage. Just going to be very difficult with only 2 races to go. John Gibson then very close behind with only 100 points between himself and Mike Matson as well for that 3rd place. And then things really tighten up. If you look down between Matson, Gregory, and Neville, only 100 points between 3 cars on that one. Another 40 points down to Martin, where Doran, Bowers, and Gerbino all remain incredibly tightly packed at the bottom. As we head over to the qualifying, we are in the last stages, only about 2.5 minutes left to go. And I was going to say we have one driver that hasn't qualified, but it looks like we now have at least 1 lap for all 39 drivers. So watching Greg Streltzoff currently coming through some of the last chicanes. Actually got a little bit of a mini chicane in there towards the end through Yalk and Rent, but down through Jackie X, it is much tighter, and it's another one of those chicanes where you got to watch out for those curbs at the apexes. So he's certainly going to have to try and bide his time through there, make sure that he doesn't trip over those big sausage curbs. I talked about the cut course penalties, but man, those curbs are huge, Ron. I have a feeling they could do some big damage.
Yeah, even in these Porsche Cup cars where, they're a sports car, they're meant to run over the curbs with a bit more efficiency than an open wheel car usually does. They're going to be brutal, especially heading off the turn 5 chicane. We already talked about the final chicane at the end of this lap, which sidecar from that. The other configuration of the chicane here is even more brutal than this. So keep an eye on those curbs throughout this race. We may very well see some of these racers achieve low Earth orbit throughout this race, especially heading off through 5. I remember one time seeing a spec racer Ford nearly do a front flip after hitting one of those curbs.
Exactly. And you can see it's even difficult coming into the pits. They have a chicane coming into there, and that can sometimes cause problems if drivers are wanting to pit in if they are in a group. So watch out for that. And the pit exit itself also requires practice. Looks like qualifying is over, so let's go through our starting order with Landon Patmore on the pole. Kellen Heimbucher is in the 2nd. You've got James Martin in 3rd position. From there, J.R. Gregory will start from 4th, and Ryan Cowley in 5th position. Charlie Boyer will start from 6th, and then as you get to row 4, Jake Gerbino starts 7th alongside Robert Neville. Richard Woodruff will start in 9th, and John Gibson rounds out your top 10. From there, it's Dean Chapman and Mike Matson on row 6. After that, Marcel Eunice will start in 13th, Kevin Orr in 14th, with Streltsov in 15th, and Doran in the 16th spot. Jonathan Reber, his teammate, will start P17, and Steve Komatz in the 18th position. A lot of cars to go through today as Jeremy Hall starts in 19th with Andy Jenks rounding out your first 20 cars. From there, Peter Coomer starts in 21st. Jason Barnett next to him on the outside of that 11th row. Kevin Schultz starts 23rd, and Daniel Harmon will be in the 24th spot. Scott Bowers, he'll be P25 outside of the quarter century mark. It's Aaron Sunday in 26th. Rex Jarrah starts 27th, and Mehmet Karachai will start in 28th. Then it's Chad Casey on P29 and Christian Braun in the 30th position. Still got more even after this. Peter Sigourney in 31st and Anthony James in 32nd. Devin Hopkins, he'll start 33rd. He's got Mark Rondeau for company on the outside of that row. David Snelling will be 35th with Christopher Hopkins in 36th. The last few are Dale Green in 37th, Chris Sherburne in 38th, and Charlie Fair in 39th. Even the stewards were looking a little bit nervous before this race with the amount of cars that we have as we take a lap around on our pole position.
Yeah, and for the first time, Landon Patmore going to sit on the pole here in this race as he heads his way out of Ersta through turn number 1 into 2 right now. The opening series of corners to kick off this lap. Very tricky to nail down by yourself in qualifying, let alone with 38 other drivers at the start of this race. It'll be real important to try and go through this first lap as cleanly and efficiently as you possibly can. We're coming up to the trouble spot that I mentioned in qualifying a little bit earlier on, this turn 5 chicane. Pretty much a flick. You just got to turn in the car and hope that you don't achieve low Earth orbit by whacking one of those curves as you crest the hill through turn number 6, down this chute into another chicane here at the top end of the track. iRacing marks off the entire top end of the circuit as solely turn number 7, which does slightly infuriate me, but that's neither here nor there. But very tricky corners through this section. Keep an eye on that one, though. You don't have a lot of runoff area to speak of. You got some grass and gravel, but you also have that very ominous tire barrier on the outside of that as well. Here's turn number 8. I think could be a good overtaking opportunity. If you get that done through there, you're going to have an unobstructed view through that turn 9 Yuck and Rint section. And now through Jackie X, the final chicane at the end of this lap. Keep an eye on those anti-cut, overcooked sausage curves, as I like to say them, because you can always ship your tooth of them. And that rounds off a rather quick lap here at Aragon after the rain that we saw, after the rain that we saw at Aragon last time out here at Zolder. These racers were probably expecting it to be a bit more tame, but this track really keeps racers on their toes.
It absolutely does, and the drivers will likely do well to try and keep it on the track, keep it out of trouble, and they'll probably get a good result today, but that's often easier said than done at a circuit like this. But 2 minutes left in the warm-up, and track position also could play a major factor here tonight, because even with all these chicanes, they're heavy braking zones. From what I've seen in past coverage of this track, Ron, it seems like it can be pretty darn tough to make passes.
Yeah, I know this racetrack is one where it tests the driver's ability to just keep it clean more than it tests the driver's ability to get a easy move done. You gotta really be bold if you want to try and get an overtake done here. We think of the heavy braking zones on this circuit. You think of turn 5, that chicane that we just saw a driver go through right there. You think of turn 1. That's another heavy braking zone, but he can't really get a move done in there too easily. Feels like that turn has 2 turns baked into one. It's kind of more like 1.5. It's an odd turn 1 here. Turn 10, that could be a good spot to get a move done, but you got to get it done with a lot of authority. As I said in the track guide, I think turn 8 may be the best spot to make a move stick. I think if everybody wants to try and go through this race as smoothly as they possibly can and get some moves done, I think the pits are probably going to be their spot. A very long pit lane here at Zolder, and as you said, very tricky on the pit entry. Lots of turns in the road, and even on the pit exit, very narrow. If you spin there, I've done it before in my iRacing career, spinning on pit exit and Austin Powersing myself in that section and having nowhere to go. So keep an eye on the pit lane all throughout this race in terms of drivers trying to run some strategy calls that we may not see in other weeks, and also just trying to get the best run through without incident.
It might look like it is close to sunset here with the sun so low in the sky, but this is being set in November in the sim as well as here in real life. So even though it is only 3:50 p.m., it still looks pretty golden hour out there as we watch Robert Neville just do a few more of his warm-up laps here, and then we'll be good to go for the race. That's down into a Boulderberg, the Boulderberg hairpin, really, into that corner. Can also see drivers maybe just send it in a little bit too hot from time to time, and we could get some messes into there depending on how much patience drivers are able to show. So that rounds up our warm-up session, going over the canal with our scenic cameras. We now switch gears into that downhill run. You talked about the difficulty into Erst, that first corner. The thing that always struck me is it's a lot steeper and it's a lot more off-camber than it necessarily looks.
Yeah, I think of turn one being a rather plain Jane corner, for lack of a better term, but then when you head your way off through there, it feels awkward in a way. All sorts of race cars, as you head your way off through there, you just kind of go through there and you get the sense of, I'm not really sure if tension is the right way to put it in your own head when you're driving through a section of racetrack and you're like, I don't know whether I'm doing this really well or not very good at all. You can never really tell in turn one. It's super tricky. Keep it on that exit curb through there as well. Very tall curve. You got gravel on the outside. Keep it on the gravel traps here as well. Not a lot of grass shoulders off in the first few turns of this lap. It's pretty much just racetrack, small thin line of grass, or even if you don't get that all, it's just the paint, and then bang right into a gravel trap. So maybe in the early stages of this race, and especially later on, these drivers may have to worry about the gravel getting dragged onto the racetrack and certain parts of the circuit resembling rally special stages instead of a racing circuit.
Yeah, very much so. I'm pretty sure it's going to get quite messy offline in a lot of the chicanes, as well as a few of the corners as well. Love the scenery at this track. One of the few spots there where you see some of that elevation change over the rise down to Boulderberg. So you got to be careful, as the car will get light over that little rise. And then here is that hairpin as drivers go by the new building that is showed up there since this was recently updated. I have to admit, I'm a little sad. I liked the old A-frame house that they had on the outside there, but this is also its own cool looking little facility that they've got at this circuit. All right, one more chicane to go. The pace car is going to leave them be. Patmore will have control of the field. Heimbecker is going to try to get the best jump he can alongside, but first they have to give each other space through the Jackie Ick chicane. And as they come out, they wait patiently for the call from the flag stand. There it is. Green flag is out, and we are on the loud pedal coming down into Erst. Decent start for our front row, but immediately Patmore is going to take the racing line, switching across to the outside. The rest of them file into the bottom of the hill at Erst.
As everybody trying to get themselves single filed out up towards the front, side-by-side racing going on throughout a decent chunk of the field as there's contact coming at you.
Looks like the 36 car, I think, involved in the 610 as well, as they plunge down a few positions from that one, but they get it pointed back forward already before we get to the chicanes, already having drivers trip over one another. Patmore continues to lead as we check in behind them. Oh, and we got a major accident. There's not much room to avoid here, and you can see it is quickly becoming a schmozzle.
Oh, as the smoke kicks up in the air, and with the glare on this racetrack too, that's going to make it even more difficult to try and pick your way through the chaos carnage as the field headed their way out of turn number 4. I talked about the challenge heading through the top end of the circuit with the runoff area and how much it gets pinched off with the tire walls around this circuit. Even more so as you head your way out of 4, as that's drama heading through 7. That's a driver spinning off big time there.
Saw some dirt or something being kicked up through the Turleman chicane as well, so I wonder if somebody cut through that one and got a slowdown penalty here on lap 1. My goodness, we already have 2 drivers with meatball flags, Kevin Schultz and Jeremy Hall, and obviously many more have been involved in incidents before we even complete a single circuit. But it is Patmore leading, Heimbecker second, James Martin in third, as we follow the mid-packers down into Erst, now switching back up to our top 3.
You know, off the back of what I said a little bit earlier on in this broadcast, talking about how the chicanes and the championship were two big C words that these drivers were going to think about, even though it's actually next week. I think challenge may be another word that we bring up a lot during the show. These racers are being put to the test. Running here at Zolder, nobody really knew what to expect entering this race, and certainly nobody knew what to expect in the drama at the very start. I don't think many people were expecting us to have a pileup coming at turn number 4. Unfortunate there, may have just been a little bit of side-by-side racing going wrong, but no matter how you slice it, Zolder biting some victims very early on.
Boyer leads a whole train of cars. Oh, and Neville is going to have to take the escape road there. That'll be a slowdown penalty for sure. And he's got a lot of cars behind him. Gerbino, Gibson, Madsen. Now, he's got a chance to try and pull over to the side here. Let's see if he holds the racing line. No, he's still holding that racing line, and I don't think he's given it back yet. Let me double check here.
Either way, though, Neville really learning. Oh, as that's a big off-track moment a little bit farther in the back for Dean Chapman. Lots of dust up in the air, running through the gravel trap in that 610 machine. Already a little bit farther behind as we jump back to Robert Neville and the hornet's nest he finds himself in the midst of right now. This is big.
He did manage to give the time back. Oh, but he's going to be side by side.
Whoa!
Into contact with another car. No, excuse me, Neville tipped him. He was the one getting shoved around there into the first corner with a bit of a sketchy rejoin to cap it off.
Yeah, that's another problem with turn number 1. You got an expansive gravel runoff area, but you can't just run it on the inside all the way through into turn number 2 because you got the pit lane exit right there as well and the barrier that separates it too. So you're pretty much forced to rejoin the racetrack as quickly as you left it. Unfortunately there for Neville, may pick up any sort of penalty if the drivers felt that they were impeded too much and report that to race control. And in the midst of all that, what I said right before we grabbed the green, some gravel getting dragged onto the racetrack there too.
Well then, and we got another. That was Jarawala, I think, cutting across. He gets back onto the circuit after the Kleina chicane. And coming up over Buttes, he's got it back under race pace now.
Was that somebody off big time as they head their way up through that section? I think that may be Rondeau in the 011 car as he's very slow, heading his way off through the twisties there. I believe that may have been him as we take a look at some of the drama that happened right at the very start. There's a contact involving Kevin Orr as he headed his way through out of 2 into 3. We were talking about the trouble that may arise heading off through the first sector on lap 1. Unfortunately there, it started early and then continued on from there.
And didn't quite see if that was the 7 or the 1. That was the 1 car, Andy Jenks, excuse me, the 34 car rather, that spun coming out of turn 7. And then Steve Komatz, who finds himself facing the wrong way temporarily down into Turleman, gets it spun around nicely. Meanwhile, somebody else coming into pit lane. Oh, and more cars coming together at a very high-speed corner.
Yeah, that was a moment that sent Dean Chapman off. I thought it was a single car spin. It was not. He had some help there, and that's got to be huge for him, as that's the moment from Neville that pitched him into a spin heading down into turn number 1. And then it was very sketchy on the rejoin as we take a look from the race spot. Helicopter heading down in there. It was the lightest of taps. But the problem with turn 1 here, I talked about it being a very awkward turn. When you go side by side through there, it can be very awkward too. And unfortunately, I think that may be what caught those racers, as we see Scott Bowers with a half spin, recovered nicely and kept it out of the fence, heading off to the chicane right at the top end.
Reaper, another one losing control. Somebody did a good job checking up there just in time, not causing a bigger incident. It's the 113, another victim there with Turleman. Seems to have been a real sticking point so far into this race, taking a brave rejoin, thankfully given room as he comes back into the racing line.
As more drivers running off the track a little bit farther behind, how that was heading down into turn number 8. I don't think there's been a single turn on this racetrack that hasn't caught at least somebody out. I mean, I said this not too long ago, and I'll say it once again because I think it really rings true. This racetrack, as much as Aragon last time out 2 weeks ago here in this series was very much so an unknown quantity, a track that doesn't get a lot of love on iRacing, and plus in the rain, the only rain race from this season, we are expecting a little bit of drama there, and we most certainly got it at Aragon. But this track, I would say, is even more of a question mark because there's a difference between, I feel, a track that everybody is learning for the very first time and another one where you kind of know it but don't know it at the same time. It's like learning a new language. If you don't know any single words in the language, you're going to be fine. If you know only like 15% of the language, you're going to tell somebody thank you when they, I don't know, slam a door right in your face.
Ryan Cowley, in the meantime, here in 19th, in 5th position in the number 19, chasing on J.R. Gregory. Has about 2 seconds to make up. You can look at the concentration on his face, frankly. Almost a look of concern, it feels like, as he navigates some of these chicanes. And the sun also in a not very advantageous position, as you can see, coming down to the braking of one.
Yeah, even in the sim, glare and visibility troubles heading down into these turns can be a huge, huge detriment to these competitors. And especially if they had some drivers going off the track right in front of them, they may be having they may have a little bit of dirt on their windshield, some bits of gravel stuck onto it, and that could make the visibility even more tricky. So you may see a lot of racers run their windshield wipers. That's not an intimidation tactic. That's just to try and clean off their windshield. Because, of course, unlike an open wheel car where you could just rip off a helmet visor, tear off, you can't do that here in a Porsche Cup car. I think Dale Earnhardt tried to do that once in NASCAR back in the 80s when he got some mud on his windshield. But I would be stunned if I ever saw a driver get halfway out of their car to tear off a windshield tear off as they're driving on the track.
Charlie Ferrer here, hot on the heels of Christian Braun, coming up to the Kleine chicane. Again, watch these drivers try to be as clean as possible through there. In the meantime, Anthony James just in front of him has got Scott Bowers all over his heels. Look at how much they're having to crank into the wheel there as they go through some of these sharp little fiddly chicanes. And Bowers is absolutely turning the screws here. Let's see if he's close enough coming into Boulderberg.
Not close enough to get the move done, but he was defending a little bit. I like the term that you brought up there, though, Joe, talking about the chicanes and then being very fiddly. We'll break out another one of my very odd metaphors to describe them here. Trying to go through some of these chicanes in these Porsche Cup cars can be like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with mins on, as we see a driver learning that the hard way with a moment off through turn number 5. First driver that I think we've seen really learn the hard lesson that the curbs there, not as cuddly as a teddy bear. They're about as cuddly as a concrete block.
Fortunately, that's you can see how much it popped him up in the air as well. In the meantime, back to Bowers versus James once again. Bowers with the pink accents on his car. Not able to do anything quite yet, but looking very quick in comparison. Anthony James, though, has had a pretty good race. He's up 10 spots from where he started this one, so definitely coming from towards the back of the field. Still has a lot in front of him, but if you can keep this pace up in the first 10 minutes, then obviously he's got something to look forward to. They're both going to manage to get through the Kleine chicane, and it looked like a pretty decent exit from that angle. I don't think Bowers has enough of a run here.
Yeah, they're close, but it's not going to be an overtake between those two yet. It's a black flag in the air for Aaron Sunday. Not sure if that's down to penalties for any sort of incident out there on the racetrack or incident points already. We'll bring in another word. The C word's really coming out in full display here on the show. I think we could add a fourth one to the list, that being calamity. In the first 11 minutes of this race, we've probably seen more drivers have their own self-involved mistakes going off the circuit on their own accord than we have seen from the entirety of this season. This has been a really tough cookie for these drivers to try and crack.
Yeah, that black flag was because of an incident with the number 60 on lap 1. So Aaron Sunday got that as well as Kevin Orr on lap 1 for an incident with a 610 car. So there's our first 2 penalties being doled out. Meanwhile, Sigourney with the likes of Hopkins and Farah in a nice little fight in front of him. Look at how close they are racing. A little bit of a different line there from Hopkins, seeing if he can maybe get the over-under on Farah, but no, they don't have enough of a run coming down into Bianchi that time. Still, he gets another shot out of it coming out of there towards Kleina.
Yeah, but going for a move in here can really mess 2 drivers up in one shot, and I think they know that for sure. Not going for the move. It doesn't really make sense to go for that overtake either. If you can save up a run heading out of 5 through turn number 6 into the top end of the circuit here through the chicane, it may be fiddly. The curves may be deadly, but he can get a good overtake done through there. And if you break the elbows at someone, the driver that you're overtaking goes off the track and picks up a slowdown, well, you won't have to worry about them for quite a long time after that.
There was a little bit of a look to the inside, but nothing doing, while the 331 of Aaron Sunday has to come to a halt for a brief moment. And that was not related to his penalty, which it looks like he's already served. Not sure why he decided to pull off and come to a complete stop there in the gravel. Thankfully, in the sim, you cannot get stuck in that gravel if you come to a stop like that. But in the meantime, still watching Braun with Fair close behind here. And then Devin Hopkins as well, the 7-11, still holding off Peter Sigourney down into Earth. They're going to be about equidistant from one another here in the first quarter of the race.
And as we get farther along in this event, I think I'm starting to see these racers crank up the level of aggression slightly. I think they are settling into a groove, going back to the comparison that I made about this track essentially being one that most racers know of the existence of, but they don't really drive around the track too much. Once they start to get a bit more experimental, look for the moves. In the case of Peter Sigourney, trying to look to get a move done heading off into the turn 5 chicane. As we see these racers get a bit more acclimatized to this track, we're going to start to see these racers settle into a groove quicker. I think we saw a little bit of it 2 weeks ago at Aragon in the rain. Of course, changeable conditions created a bit of a different style of racing than we usually have, obviously, because we had a lot of rain there, and it's been bone dry for every single race thus far this season. However, these racers, once they settle into a groove, they may be feeling a lot better about their chances.
Well, and a little bit wide there for Scott Bowers. That's going to cost him a position, unfortunately. So down 1. Oh, we got some help. And they tangled. That was Bowers and Dale Green, I suppose, that were in this little incident. We had been watching them fighting before, but it has really unfolded in an unfortunate way.
Yeah, I saw that car and just a plume of smoke a little bit farther up the road. I thought it was only 1. Nope, it was 2, and they tangle in the braking zone heading down into turn 8. With that being a fantastic spot to get a move done. Can see aggression boil over there. Unfortunately, I think it was just cars a little bit too close for their own comfort heading down in there, and sadly, that's going to take them out of contention, at least for now. So have a long way left to go in this race with 44 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock.
There is still a lot left in this thing. I feel like drivers maybe need to calm down a little bit. It is, I have to say, a lot more single file than what it started as, but I feel like we're seeing a few silly mistakes out there today. I thought, or at least I hoped we would have left them behind in the wetness at Aragon, and there's another one.
You know, as much as comparing a wet race to a completely dry one may seem a little bit out there, even from the comparisons that come out of my mouth. I mean, hey, like 5 minutes ago, I was talking about solving Rubik's Cubes with mins on your hands. I still think there's a lot of truth said in just comparing, though, wet weather action at Aragon to this race here today. I'll have to look as well to see what the conditions are for these racers. It being Zolder in the fall months, I can imagine that these racers aren't exactly running with a boiling hot track conditions. So I wonder if there's any worries about that. But Landon Packmore, he's had some trouble up the front. He's spun out of the race lead, is now out of the podium.
Ooh, what has happened here. He's down to 4th position. Heimbecker is now our leader. Looked like maybe that was the Klein chicane. And yes, I can confirm as we see the replay, as maybe just a little bit too hot into it. He kept it from spinning completely around. Oh, at first. Oh, and then a secondary incident. Yeah, had it until he didn't, essentially.
Yeah, hit the loose stuff, hit the gravel on a rand. He's gonna go. That is a heartbreaking mistake for the driver. The number 3 was running smooth. He wasn't driving off into the sunset, though, as Kellen Heimbecker was only about 1.5 seconds behind, more often than not. But either way, Landon Patmore, an easy mistake to make as you head your way off through that chicane, but a heartbreaking one for him. Was running so good. Not sure if we have seen him thus far this season, but if that was his debut, unfortunately, there for that red, white, and blue car with the black all over it, that is not going to go well. Some gravel on the track going to loop him around, and a chance at a win is certainly faltered.
So this bumps up James Martin into 2nd. J.R. Gregory is actually pretty close to him in P3. Martin, though, is about 6 seconds, I should say, behind Heimbecker. So that's a big distance at this early stage. Snelling showing he needs repairs. Obviously, he's got a black and orange flag. We saw Christopher Hopkins also with a penalty that was due to an incident on lap 1. So we're almost 20 minutes in. We're starting to see drivers from that first lap finally getting their penalties. And this was Anthony James having to take a few stabs at getting it turned around, apparently.
As we take a look at some more drama going on, that's Kevin Schultz with a spin coming at turn number 8. This time he's going to impact the wall, so that is going to affect the front end of his number 18 car quite a decent amount. The tire bundles here on iRacing, not soft and cuddly. They're not that soft and cuddly in real life either, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But contact made, got to put some damage on the front bumper for sure, and maybe even some suspension damage if he hit it at an odd angle. Doing a raise, though, off the back of the discussion I had just a couple of moments ago. Landon Patmore is actually a rookie in the PCA, making his very first start. I gotta say, outside that mistake, which easy to make, even if you breathe on the curb, sometimes they get bites. Oh!
Holy moly. That was Sigourney, I think. Yeah, that was Peter Sigourney just threading the needle, somehow avoiding an accident. I thought for sure he was going to plow into the car ahead, lose another spot here to Chris Sherburne for good measure, as he works his way into the X chicane. So the 222 has avoided disaster, at least what could have been a worse disaster, I should say.
Yeah, that could have ended a heck of a lot worse than already did Sigourney. Given the drivers around him, definitely a spook, I think is probably the best word to describe it. We are a couple of weeks removed from Halloween. I don't think that sort of jump scare is going to be received too well, as side-by-side racing going to go on as they head their way off through turns number 2 and 3. Sigourney trying to hold on to that spot for dear life, and it looks like he'll be able to do it as they head their way out of 4, but another off-track contact!
Dean Chapman, unfortunately, collected, and he bounces back onto the track. This is what we talked about earlier. This is such a narrow part. Thankfully, all those behind able to avoid, eventually finds an opening that Sigourney can get the car facing the right way. It seems that small mistakes have had dire consequences in this race. I said it's going to be tough to stay out of trouble, and it's not just your own trouble, it's others' trouble.
Oh, Dean Chapman, I think, just suffered a 14 quintillion G impact into that outside tire bundle. Right as I was calling that, he hit the fence and bounced back at roughly the same speed. I think I got whiplash just looking at that crash. As we're going to take a look at it from Chapman's perspective, hit right at the end of that tire barrier. Going to send him the other direction. So a game of ping pong as they head their way out of 4. Not the first incident we've seen through that section of the racetrack. May not be the last here either. And I think with that secondary impact, he may have just blown up the motor in that race car. Rear engine, obviously, here with these Porsche Cup cars. Look at that. That is a sledgehammer. That's not even a sledgehammer shot. That's pretty much just a train coming in and hitting that car right in the front.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the engine in the back. He does get a huge shot to that on the other wall as well. incredibly, I don't see a black and orange flag for that one. I don't know how.
That car's made out of tungsten.
Yeah, apparently platinum or something. In the meantime, this is the number 6 carrying on. And that is Christian Braun sitting in 21st position with Jonathan Reber just ahead. That's Charlie Ferrer behind. Reber in the purple car, though. Whoa, look at this. He is starting to get awful close to that rear diffuser. Unfortunately, drops back just a bit, unable to do anything at this stage. Marcel Eunice, though, the latest to incur the wrath of the stewards and has a black flag.
Yes, an unfortunate moment for him. A lot of black flags have already come out. Also saw a second one from Sunday not too long ago. Maybe that could have potentially been from him coming in to serve the initial black flag. Not sure what the deal was, but unfortunately for Aaron Sunday, his race is pretty much over before it even got started. He's down in 38th at the moment, 3 laps down.
Yeah, he's quite a ways away. I don't see a second one right now, at least from the stewards. So it may have already, or it may have been from a bad pit exit or something to that matter, because this is a tricky one to do a safe pit exit since it is so long and there is a long guideline that you have to stay within. Regardless, like you said, it's just been a bad day all around for him. In the meantime, we continue to watch that 6 car flirt with the edge of grip just off of the racing surface. Charlie Ferrer gets a good run because of that, but it's just too short of a straight coming down to the Kleine chicane. Look at how he bounded over the curbs, though.
Man, that turn 5 chicane, I said it right towards the start of the show, and I'll say it again. You could very easily strike the moon if you even look at those curbs the wrong way. These cars are big, they are heavy, but even so, if you hit that curb in a wrong way, even look at it the wrong way, bing, off you're gonna go.
Ferrer not able to pick it up, unfortunately for him. While he is trying to catch back up, we want to give a mention to Princess Cruises because they're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to PCA Concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. And we had a car in pit lane that unfortunately discovered one of the pitfalls of being close behind another car and trying to maximize your pit entry. I think got into the rear bumper of that car ahead just because they were expecting they could fly forward a little bit quicker than the car braking for the corner.
Yeah, as much as we have talked at length about the many challenging sections of this racetrack, which, I mean, hey, you've already been able to see that thus far here. A lot of drivers have felt the burn here on this racetrack. That pit entry is also quite sketchy, too. I'm trying to think of tracks on iRacing where the pit entry is directly on the racing line, heading into one of the heaviest braking zones, if not the heaviest braking zone on the entirety of the lap. I will eventually come up with a racetrack soon, but Zolder is the one that pops into mind the most because you've got to drop the anchors big time heading off in there. So if you have a racer right behind you who's looking to enter pit lane, there's really no smooth way that is going to go. You either have to check up and lose out on a bunch of time, or you pretty much just have to keep your fingers crossed, hold that steering wheel tight, and close your eyes before we see cars spear off the track into the gravel trap. That pit entry is definitely a relic of a very old school racetrack here at Zolder. It's been around for a while here, this.
I was going to say Montreal is very similar in that regard. We're watching on board with J.R. Gregory, though. That is for position. This is second place, nearly making contact with the rear bumper once again, but that causes him to check up, and Martin scoots away up ahead of him. Battle for P2 still taking place, a fair margin behind Heimbecker.
And that's a good shot there for Montreal as we saw that very close quarter stuff heading off through the chicane. Even though I've talked about the turn 5 chicane a lot, and we just saw some drama heading down to the turn 10 chicane at the end of the lap, I think the chicane at the top end of the track has been even more of a challenge for these racers. It's a mix of a lot. You got unsuspecting curves that you think you can run over rather smoothly, which turn out to be just sitting around waiting to catch out just the latest victim. But it's also heavy braking spots. Look at Patmore going for the dive on Gregory into one, and it looks like he's gonna make that move stick. But Gregory
into the wall for Gregory. Contact between Patmore and he. He'll get it back onto the track. Tracks a whole lot of gravel while he's doing it. How damaged is the car, though, with that contact with the Armco? That's the big question.
Yeah, thankfully for J.R. Gregory, he got away with that rather scot-free. May have to feel some pressure from Ryan Cowley, but landed Patmore after starting from the pole, running up the front, contact being made in this moment, hang out the chicane. I think what did it for J.R. to kind of send himself into the side of that 3 machine was he got up onto that outside curb. I talked about a little bit earlier on in this show, that is such a high exit curb, and even in these Porsche Cup cars, you just run off that track a little bit, you're going to lose that. You're going to lose the grip. You're going to lose the ability to stomp on that gas pedal. Unfortunately, there for JR, I think that's exactly what happened. Hit the gas a little bit too hard over that curb, looped the car around. He would have just gone for a regular spin, but unfortunately for Landon Patmore, he was there to get caught up in the crossfire.
I'm not sure. Those replays, it didn't look like he was losing control. It looked to me like he was trying to take the racing line. Remember, it switches over to the left-hand side, and the car next to him just was not moving over as quickly as he was. I think it was more of a miscommunication from what it seemed there. In the meantime, Heimbecker now leads by 8.5 seconds with all that battling happening behind him. Martin gets to run away now that Gregory and Patmore have had their incidents. Patmore down to 7th spot after starting this one on pole. He certainly has the pace. Like you mentioned, he is a rookie in the series. We know he's quick, but I am seeing a little bit of that lack of experience rearing its ugly head.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Patmore, the rookie here in this series, making his debut. Started off so good with a fantastic qualifying run, but things not going well here as Ryan Cowley gets a move done on Gregory to jump his way up into 3rd. So your multi-time race winner from this season, 4 wins in the past 4 races, running in P3 at the moment. So it has been a good comeback drive from him. So we take a look on board with JR. And there, I guess you are exactly right there, Joe. I thought it was a little bit of sliding around there, but from that onboard shot with JR, you can't really see any counter steering going into that. So yeah, I think he was just trying to slide over to the other side.
Yeah, the question is that going to net him a penalty in this one? Great move by Cowley, although took quite a bit of curb as well coming through that climb chicane to make it happen, but that bumps him up into the podium positions. All of his podium finishes so far have been on that top spot as we got another driver coming in, J.R. Gregory, the first of our front runners to elect to take a pit stop about halfway through.
Yeah, so J.R. Gregory coming down pit lane. I wonder with the attrition that we have seen thus far in this race, whether or not it will spur some potentially off the wall and maybe a little bit wacky strategy. I think I said that right at the start of the show, where we may see the pit strategy rear its head a bit more here than we have seen some of the other dry races, just because this track is such an unknown quantity. I also think with the way this track is, the amount of times that you have to go on the brakes, maybe do a little bit of lifting, you can maybe add in a bit more lifting and coasting than you would at other tracks. So I wonder if we are seeing that pitch strategy really get played by some racers who may have run into some drama a bit earlier on, or just looking to get a good result here today.
Meanwhile, jumping up once again here towards some of our drivers having a little 3-way battle. I think is that Patmore? Yeah, that is Patmore with Gibson just in front of him, and that's Charlie Boyer there in 4th spot. It's all quite close to one another. Oh, but Patmore, when I wasn't looking, I was checking the time and scoring, seems to have gone awry coming out of turn 7, and is again having a tough time trying to find an opening to get that car clear and running. So this now leaves it up to Boyer and Gibson. Here is on board. This one definitely was a getting loose moment.
Yeah, and he also smacks a tire barrier with the rear end of that car. I wonder if there's any sort of damage done to it. As we take a look, there was the contact. It may not seem like the hardest hit in the world, but that tire barrier does stick out at a rather odd angle. I think there's a lot of things leading up to that spin. I think there's maybe some contact with that inside curb. I think some of the dirty air coming off the back of the car right in front may have set that car running a little bit easier than it usually would. No matter how you slice it, though, unfortunate way that Landon Pat for his race has gone. He was leading early on, but as we've gone into the second half, things have fallen apart.
On board with Gibson, that's Boyer just in front that you can see. Both of them looking like they don't have too much of a problem this time through the Kleine chicane, over the hump at Butte, and then back into the braking down at Turleman. This has a triple apex chicane, very tricky to try and line up and get the run here. Set yourself up for the run out of turn 7, and both of them doing a very good job. They look pretty composed at this stage. Big look to the inside by the 911 car, but I think it was just showing the nose rather than making a legitimate move.
So as Gibson continues to run behind Boyer in this battle for P4, you brought up a good word there, Joe, composure. I think as we start to see these racers be a bit more composed, be a bit more confident in running around this track, we're going to start to see them go for some moves that we wouldn't have seen earlier on, not due to a matter of aggression, but just a matter of comfort, knowing when you can get some overtakes done. We said right towards the start of the show, it may be tricky to actually get a move done here at Zolder. This track a bit on the wider end compared to some other older Grand Prix venues. This track did host the Belgian Grand Prix for a decent period of time. I personally think it is a very cool racetrack, but it is a blast from the past, and you can certainly see that blast from the past kind of nature in many parts of this racetrack, even with the refresh version that iRacing brought out a couple of years ago. But as these racers begin to get more confident, I think we've already seen a decent amount of that thus far here in the first 33 minutes, give or take, that we've seen these racers have that confidence build and build and build as this race has come along, even with that sun dipping below the horizon and the grip probably falling away with it.
Yeah, certainly getting cooler and cooler on the circuit. Gibson at times getting so close to the back of Cowley, of Boyer rather. But we're seeing what I was talking about earlier in this broadcast, that it is rather difficult to try and actually execute on the pass. He's going to need to get a little bit tricky potentially in these final 26 minutes, maybe use that pit strategy to try and leapfrog his rival. But I don't know if it's the right time yet. There's just too many cars that have not pitted that he could probably get caught up in traffic and it could backfire. So he'll circulate one more time in 5th, unable to get close enough to Charlie Boyer, as the two of them run about 15 seconds or so behind the overall leader.
Yeah, Heimbecker, once he grabbed that race lead, he has taken that torch and ran off into the sunset. Look at that gap, and look at that boat right behind there. That's one of the things I love about Zolder. You can see some boats run around in the canals around here. That's always kind of funny to see from my perspective whenever I'm driving around here. But Kellen Heimbecker, I think, could care less about the scenery. He's just focused on running on the road and running as strongly as he possibly can for the driver of the number 14 car. This has been a commanding race for him up to this point. Has 25 minutes left to try and get the job done, but we've seen him be in very good positions before thus far this season. But if he can get the job done, he'll only be the 3rd winner from this season. Mark Doran was able to convert a pole into a win in round number 1 at Spa, and since then it has been the Ryan Cowley series as he's won 4 straight races. If Heimbecker can kind of break that trend, it won't be the first time that we've seen a pole sitter be able to not convert it into a win, as Landon Patmore still slid a little bit farther behind in 11th, and Heimbecker started a little bit farther behind, but Heimbecker running a great race at the moment. If he does join that winner's club here from this season, I think it will have been very well earned.
Yeah, and you got to think that there's some nerves that Heimbecker is feeling at this stage. Patmore trying to go by Peter Kummer, and Kummer gives some space down at the apex. That's going to be P10 for Landon. But Kellen, second, third. His last 4 races have been oh so close, and he hasn't been able to convert any of them. Is this the night where he finally manages to take that top spot. I'm going to knock on some wood. He is doing well right now. It's about 11 and a half seconds to the next nearest car. But as we've seen, things can unravel here quite quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to refrain from mentioning anything more involving our race leader because I know that I have been a little bit prone to throwing commentators' jinxes and rather tragic ones at that. So I'm going to zip it and move on and talk about Ryan Cowley, the dominant driver that we've had up to this point in this season. It was, I wouldn't necessarily say uncharacteristic, but it was a little bit strange to see him start a little bit farther behind than he usually has. Cowley, with a lot of wins up to this point in the season, rather amazing to say that despite the fact he has 4 wins, only has had 2 poles, those coming at Indianapolis and Laguna Seca, but started well farther behind in this race compared to what we usually see from Cowley. So the fact he's running in 3rd and the fact that Heimbecker is way off there in the sunset, I wonder what Cowley could have maybe done if he started on the front row. I think that would have been a titanic battle between the drivers of the number 14 and 19 cars respectively, but that's how the fates went. Heimbecker not going to complain about it, and even for Cowley starting a little bit farther behind, if he can walk away from this race with the podium, he'll be feeling quite good when it comes to that championship.
I'm not sure if Cowley would have been able to get there, though. Looking, Bowers is going to get a penalty. Oh, that is going to hurt. But I was going to say, I'm looking at the fastest lap times for Cowley right now, and it's about half a second off of Heimbecker's fastest lap time. So I get the sense that this is probably about where that 19 would have wound up. We did have another pit stop. Daniel Harmon, we saw on the screen, just completing his. He's back out in about 30th position. But we're still not seeing too many drivers up towards the top end. J.R. Gregory really is the first one on the sharp end of the field to have taken that pit stop. And it looks like Rex Jarawala is now the latest to decide it's time for some fuel.
Yeah, now as we get closer and closer into the final third, we will see pretty much everybody else come down pit lane, and some of the racers who maybe came in early will have to come in for a second stop. I'm not sure if some of them will be able to make it all the way through to the very end, because we did have quite a lot of early pit stops. And speaking of, Galen Heimbecker's actually come down pit lane with 21 and a half minutes left on the clock.
An interesting call. So about 2/3 through this race, he should have plenty of fuel to go farther than this, as evidenced by all of his competitors streaming on by. James Martin will obviously inherit the lead here temporarily. Cowley keeps going. Charlie Boyer as well. Woodruff carries on. Not seeing anybody of that front group deciding to join him. Will he be able to get back out in clear air? I think that's really the big problem that he has with this. If he comes out in traffic, that could be a problem, not just because I think he'll lose a lot of pace. Remember, he had about, 10, 11 seconds, something like that. I think it's the trouble that we've been seeing in the mid-pack that's really the concern.
Yeah, if you are running comfortably up at the front, come down pit lane, exit out, and find yourself in the midst of a knife fight, you're not going to be feeling very happy. So I think Kellen Heimbecker has done himself some favors by being able to exit out in front of a bit of a hornet's nest around him, but he just needs to keep that car on the road, keep it clean, and make sure that none of those racers really start to battle with him, as Peter Coomer looks to try and battle in that 333 machine. Thought there was going to be a move heading off into 5. Instead, he whacks a curb and may feel some pressure for some drivers a little bit farther behind. That's a lap car, I believe. So that's not going to be a swap or a spot for actual position. So we'll have to see how Robert Neville and everybody else may be able to close up that gap here soon, as Ron Cowley and James Martin actually swapping spots up at the very north end of the field, as Cowley has come down pit lane. Fascinating to see everybody coming in for much earlier calls than we usually see.
Yeah, this is, again, atypical here. Maybe doing it in response to Heimbecker while he completes his pit stop. I want to give a shout out to Princess Cruises, because they're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to PCA Concierge Team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. So we continue to ride on board. I think that may have been with Heimbecker, who's going to emerge well ahead of Cowley. Will Cowley get some clear air? Yes, indeed he does. Yeah, that is actually a pretty good open gap.
Yeah, Ryan Cowley finding himself clear of all the chaos and all the drama. He's got to be able to stretch out his legs a lot, really set in some good lap times to keep an eye on that battle with himself and James Martin, whether or not that will come out the way of Cowley and he can jump his way up in a P2, or if James Martin will be able to hold on to that race lead for a little bit longer, utilize the clean air that he's in too, and just drive off into the sunset and trying to continue on in that podium spot. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as we still have the pit stops going on. Everybody pretty much disagreeing on what exactly is the right strategy call. All throughout the season, we've usually seen everybody come in within the final 15 minutes, usually with 12 minutes left on the clock. We'll see a vast majority of the field flood down pit lane. This race, though, nobody has really known exactly what to do in terms of the strategy. I think there's two reasons for that. Actually, I'll throw in a third. The drama that we've seen out there on the racetrack has most certainly thrown some other racers' strategies completely asunder as they've had to try and claw their way back up the field after some drama a little bit earlier on. This track being an unknown quantity can most certainly affect what these racers do with the strategy also. And throw in the midst of all that as well, the very sketchy pit entry and exit. Even the exit is brutal. I talked about how narrow it is coming out there. If you spin, you're pretty much going to be parked nose to nose against the barriers. Haven't seen a driver Austin Powers themselves yet. Emphasis on yet. I would not be shocked if we don't see that between now and the end of the checkered flag, just down to pure statistics alone. And also the pit exit, where you go out there on the racetrack, you're spat out right on the inside of turn number 2, which if you are a driver on ice cold tires on a rather cool track, I mean, hey, looking at the track temps, we have been cold tonight. That is going to be horrifying because you're going to see those racers approach and the bright headlights flashing in your rear view mirror, and it's going to look like there's a missile chasing you off to bed.
Yeah, it is only 67 Fahrenheit on the track, which is about as cool as it gets on the pavement in iRacing, when it's dry at least. So they will have to watch out for those cool tires coming back out. James Martin is now in. Charlie Boyer will take over the lead. An interesting note on Heimbecker's choice of when to pit is while he did have to come out pretty close to Coomer, he cut that a little bit tight. His next car up has been Landon Patmore, and Landon was at about the same pace with him being the pole sitter. So that actually worked out well for Heimbecker as Patmore actually just pitted in this time. We can see on the right-hand side of our screen. In the meanwhile, nice little fight here coming down around the hairpin and towards the Jackie Ick chicane. We've got Chris Sherburne here in 21st position as Charlie Fair in front of him abandons that fight, and that is a good example of just how much quicker the car who is not braking for the corner really heads into that pit lane.
As I mentioned that we were going to have a battle for second has really intensified between Ryan Cowley and James Martin. Martin just came down pit lane and was briefly in front of Cowley. However, Cowley was able to get that move done to jump his way up into what is currently P10, would be net P2 as a result of these pit stops as Landon Patmore has exited about well farther behind, slotted 17th in that number 3 machine. Still got to commend the rookie in his effort in his very first race, joining a series and running at Zolder for your first ever event in the PCA. That is a tough ask. So although there have been a couple of mistakes, I want to give props where props are due to our rookie driver running in P17. Of course, do have some more pit stops going on with the top 5 all coming down pit lane at the exact same time. We'll definitely jump up from that P17 spot. Mark Rondeau picking up a disqualification in the 011 car.
Oh, and for those not familiar, there is an incident limit in this series, so that's why he has been DQ'd, as he has taken too many off tracks and contacts and various problems out on the circuit. Peter Coomer as well, I think, was stopped on the track for some reason. He's now made his way into pit lane. I wondered if we'd get any drivers that would be out, and unfortunately for Rondeau, didn't even get to the final last minute or so of this race before he ran out of chances.
Mark Doran also picking up the black flag. He was a part of that pack that just came down pit lane. That had to have been for some sort of pit lane infraction. They are rather easy to pick up here at Zolder. I've learned that from my own time on iRacing. Exiting the pit lane here at Zolder, it's not down to a speeding violation or anything of the sorts. It's just clipping the white line on pit exit as you head your way down into turn number 2. I've done it a decent amount. It's ingrained in a racer's head heading off into a turn that you want to set yourself up as far to the outside as you can, as Cowley with the save.
Wow, heck of a save, and it's really erupted things behind him as they go side by side into the corner. Martin almost managing to get there. And unfortunate news for you is that, once again, a little bit of a false prediction. It was speeding that gave Mark Doran the black flag as he took off his pit limit a little bit too early. And behind this fight, somebody headed in. That may have been a lapped car, actually. Boyer unable to pick up on Martin's mistake, who holds on to what is currently 4th. Make that 3rd now that it looks like Neville is pitted in.
Yeah, so Robert Neville with some drama a little bit earlier on. He's come down pit lane in that 087 car. Gonna dip outside of the top 5 as Callie and Marn gonna have a battle all the way through to the end. Charlie Bauer right in tow in that 013 machine. We'll have to see if any more battling will go on between those racers. And off the back of that second bad prediction that I thought could have been accurate, I gave some good reasoning behind it. It was just inaccurate. So if you would like my job here at RaceSpot, why not write to us at...
Don't be so down on yourself. It happens.
Mark the envelope. I don't like that ginger talking into my ear on these shows anymore.
As Landon Patmore emerges in 10th place, a top 10 you would think would be good for a rookie, but I think considering he put it on pole, this is a less than stellar result, but I'm sure a lot to learn out of this one for the number 3 car when he comes away. And he's only got to make it another 12 more minutes here to wrap this one up. He could still catch up to Streltsov. It's about 4 seconds, but he's going to need some massive pace to catch the 642 before this is over. Right now, though, I think everybody biting their nails for Kellen Heimbecker. He still leads. It's 15 seconds. He is handily ahead, but he's got to execute from here.
Yeah, just needs to keep it on the road, keep it smooth, and keep it clean as we get closer to the very end. Sometimes you can have a sort of situation develop at the end of a race like this, whether it be hour-long here in the PCA or whatever race you may have. You get to the very end and you have target fixation on that checkered flag, and you start to get a little bit more focused on the end of the race than you are on actually running the laps and doing what you need to do to get there to the very end. So I'm sure everybody throughout this field, they've seen what's going on in this race and they just want to keep it on the road. As Ryan Cowley and James Martin still close together. Thought Martin was maybe going to have a look. He peaked very briefly but wasn't able to get a good exit out of turn number 4 into 5. Still slotted in P3 in that 705 machine. Chris Sherburne has come down pit lane as well in the 135 car. That's jumped Landon Patmore back inside of the top 10 in that number 3 machine. However, we've still got some good battles going on throughout this field, even with only 10.5 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, this train that we're looking at, this is for 2nd place. It's Cowley ahead of Martin, ahead of Boyer, ahead of Gibson, and they're all split by somewhere in the realm of about 2.5 seconds right now. Anybody makes a mistake in this group, they're going to pay for it in a spot, no doubt. But Cowley is the one with the most to lose up at the front of them. Can he bring home this 2nd place? Even though it won't be a win, it'll still be pretty darn handy in perhaps sealing up a championship. I'm not sure exactly what the math does because of the drop weeks, but I'd say another 2nd place will do him no harm on that one as the lapped car tries to stay out of the way of these 4 and thankfully does a good job, but definitely held up. I think Boyer and Gibson are there at the tail.
Yeah, I am surprised that we haven't really talked about the lap traffic too much here and how difficult of a spot it is to get moves done on lap traffic everywhere around this track, no matter where you are, unless that lap traffic drops the anchors and slows down by about 5 seconds to let you go on the straightaways. It's always going to be a little bit nerve-wracking reeling in some lap traffic. This track is old school, narrow. The runoff areas are just grass and gravel, maybe a small little patch of asphalt on the inside of some of these fiddly chicanes, but outside of that, you've got nothing to help you out. This track is one where you have to learn self-reliance very quickly. If you can run around this track and not have to have your hand held throughout it, you're gonna be fine. If not, you're probably going to you'll learn the lessons of this track in a very hard way, as I think Mark Doran may have just done, as he's picked up a meatball flag in the past few moments.
He and Braun were involved in an incident right at that corner that we just saw there coming through Yock and Rent. I don't know if we'll get a replay of it, but man, it was massive. A couple cars taking huge hits, and definitely seen a few of them maybe DNF because of that, from what we've seen, like you said, Doran, with that meatball kind of sending him into pit lane. In the meantime, yeah, here we go. Here's the incident. Now watch this. One car gets loose. The other tries to take avoiding action, gets loose themselves, and then those behind, place to go. Ugh.
Yeah, and heading out of turn number 8 through that turn 9 chicane, that fiddly chicane to kind of keep you on your toes as you head out of the 8th turn. It feels kind of like a street track as you head your way off through there. No runoff area. You just have a racetrack, a painted white line on the edge, small little bit of grass, and then a tire barrier. And he hit that virtually head on, too. That was a sledgehammer shot into the wall, going to join a rather long list of racers who have picked up some big damage in this race, and a rather long list of competitors multiple laps down here, as Marcel Yunus currently down in pit lane, 1 minute and 22 seconds in his pit stall, and still down in pit lane for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Don't need to be an expert to know that 90 seconds down in pit lane is not the way that you should go about things, so such a shame for him to have that very long stop as he tried to repair the damage on that race car. But once again, turn 8 proving that no turn on this racetrack is going to let these racers get away from this race without a couple war wounds.
Been keeping an eye on Heimbecker here ahead of this battle that we're still watching. Last 2 laps have been just a little slower. First one, or at least lap 32, was much slower, and then lap 33 was much slower, and 34 was just a little bit slower. So I wonder if he's backing it up, because I noticed that gap coming down and just trying to manage the pace to the end, because he knows he's got a handy victory here, so he doesn't really need to push too hard. But we've only got, maybe about 4 laps left to go here?
Yeah, we are getting it to crunch time in this event. I think we're probably coming to 4 to go this time by, if my math serves me correctly, which you can take that with a grain of salt. So even if we have a quintillion laps left, if Kellen Heimbecker is comfortable enough running here on this track, he's going to be able to settle it into a groove. It looks like, I mean, it's the 13-second gap. It's not insurmountable if he does run into some drama, but really, I think he knows his way around this track quite well, and I think it's more likely that Ryan Cowley and James Martin are going to battle hard soon than it will be Heimbecker having a moment. And speaking of battling hard, Charlie Boyer and John Gibson duking it out for P4 at the moment.
Yeah, this is looking a little bit intense for this spot just outside of the podium. A little bit of a look coming down into Boulderberg. Didn't quite get him what he wanted. Gibson's not giving up on this yet. He stays glued to the 013 as Boyer is actually falling off what was a fight with he, Martin, and Cowley earlier. Remember, I mentioned we had a train of 4 going on. It is breaking up into 2 pairs here in the dying stages.
Yeah, even then, the pairs of battles is, we like it as well. Kind of divide and conquer, I think, would maybe be the way to describe it. Potentially, it's a divide and try and conquer the battle, I think, is the best way that I could sum it up, as the racers farther up the road look to have their own battle for the final 2 podium spots. Charlie Boyer and John Gibson going to have their own battle for the final 2 spots inside the top 5. As much as we always talk about the battling for the championship win, because everybody wants to eye that gold medal in the driver's points at the end of one of these seasons, the battling a little bit farther behind can still be intense, and there could still have some points merits to win if you do finish in front of one of your main rivals. A lot of these racers that we see out there on the racetrack run with us race in and race out. We haven't seen too many racers just completely drop out throughout the 6 rounds that we have had leading up to the end of tonight's race. Always love to see the consistent level of strong participation, doubly so considering we had 39 cars before we grabbed the green here in this race. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, 39 cars at Zolder. That's a heck of a lot of cars for this racetrack, which is a bit on the smaller end.
Unfortunately, we've lost a bunch of them. Snelling, Bowers, Rondeau, Harmon, and it looks like Doran is pretty much out at this stage as well. We've been watching Karachai for a bit. He's up 15, a really good run there. But down here, we've got Charlie Ferrer just ahead of Dale Green, 18 positions gained, and he still isn't our hardest charger. You jump up to Chris Sherburne in 19th. He's up 19 positions from just about dead last on the grid to rise his way up the field. So this is about to get very fun in this group, being led right now, it looks like, by Jonathan Reber in 20th position, but being closely followed as Andy Jenks in front of them has run into trouble coming out of the hairpin.
Yeah, and he's got meatball flag too. Yeah. That had to have been a big hit into the tire bearing. You can see that car maybe crapping a little bit as he tries to trundle that machine back into pit lane. This is going to be a little bit sketchy with that car right off the track in front of him. There was actually 2 cars off the road as they had their way down to turn number 10. May have been another case of misjudging the braking zone into turn number 10 and contact made, and that's going to affect that battle quite a lot. We'll start off by taking a look to see what's happened to Andy Jenks, who's not only got a meatball from that collision into the wall, he's also picked up a black flag on pit entry. I'm not even going to speculate what that was because it'd probably be incorrect, as there was a moment with Reber running into the back of the car right in front. Not sure who that was, but either way, a slice of contact into 10.
Wow. This is where you just have to bring it home, and drivers finding it maybe a little bit too tough as Gerbino versus Casion comes down to the last little bit, and it is almost contact between them into Turleman. They'll somehow get away with it. Look at how much debris is all over the track as well. Drivers have been dragging that on all night long, but Gerbino finds himself with work still yet to do. Casion is not succumbing to the immense pressure that the 113 is putting up.
Yeah, so as this battle continues to be intense, you brought up a fantastic point that I raised a bit earlier on, talking about the gravel on the outside of this track. That can make getting a move done a little bit more difficult as we get farther along in this race. On that racing line, it's going to be smooth, it's going to be clean, the tire rubber is going to be laid down on the racetrack. You're going to be feeling the grip. Step 1 foot outside of it, though, and run off into the dirt, and it's going to feel like this racetrack has been turned into a giant slip and slide. Look at the pit exit as they headed their way through 1 into 2. Didn't get to see it too much under the lights here at Zolder. However, there was a whole lot of gravel on the pit exit. I'm surprised we haven't seen a driver loop it coming out of there yet, as I believe we are now on that final lap for Kellen Heimbecker on track for his first win.
He just recently crossed the line. He's got about 12 seconds, and the gap has been going downwards, but like I said, pretty sure he is managing that gap. If Gerbino would love to try and bridge the gap in the meantime, my goodness, he has been so close to Casion. Just can't seem to do anything with how tight he is running. Just needs to line him up, I think. He's going to get another lap and a half here to try and make this pass stick somewhere. And that is not a car for position behind him. It looks like Chris Sherburne's about 4 seconds back, so that must be a lapped car that is suddenly showing up in their mirrors. Heimbecker, though, with not much time left to go. In fact, I think Heimbecker just came through Turleman. He's close to putting these cars a lap down. There he is now.
Yeah, Heimbecker heading his way into turn number 8 for the last time in a few moments. Thankfully for all parties involved, Heimbecker won't have to worry about the traffic as it's too far up the road, and those racers won't have to worry about your race leader overtaking them. But what a drive from the number 14 man, as he is only a few turns away from victory.
Always the bridesmaid, at least for much of this season. But now he no longer has to play second fiddle. Kellen Heimbecker is going to take your win, his first of the season here in Belgium, and with a handy margin, 12 seconds over Ryan Cowley, who now rocks up behind him to the checkered flag to get himself another podium. His first that wasn't a win, as Martin raced him home for it. Look at how close it was there for that second place.
So let's look at how close it is for the battling a little bit farther behind. Greg Schutzloff trying to race it all the way through to the very end, and he's not going to get P8 over Mike Madsen. So the battling involving Jake Gerbino, we run on board with the Connecticut Valley driver in the 113 car, running in 17th. He's lost at 10 spots since the drop of the green, but wants to make up maybe a couple right at the very end. A black flag for Kevin Schultz. That's going to ruin his race. He won't be able to serve that black flag either, since we are on the last laps. That'll be about 40 to 45 seconds added onto his time once we get the checkered flag. But I don't think Jake Gerbino is close enough to get a move done. Unless he goes for a dive, which he's looking for.
He's going to be close to it, cuts back underneath. This could be it. The exit, though, does not give you much time before the line, and no, he doesn't have it. Although that was a very good effort, as it was a tight battle, 0.08 of a second between Gerbino and Casey on at the line. Only 20 cars out of our 39 starters are going to complete every lap. Many of them wound up getting lapped by the leaders today, as it was about a minute and a half lap, so it's not particularly short, but apparently the pace difference was quite big, and I'm sure the cut course penalties that maybe happened a few times played a part in that, as Heimbecker was our winner in the end. Ryan Cowley with a second place over James Martin, finishing in third. Charlie Boyer still manages fourth, while behind him it's John Gibson getting a top 5. J.R. Gregory was 6th, Richard Woodruff in 7th, and Mike Madsen in 8th. Greg Streltsov will finish P9, and Pat Moore, pole sitter, only a top 10 for him today. Robert Neville was 11th, as Jason Barnett was in P12. Mehmet Karachai gets a nice 13th spot. Rex Jarawala had some drama throughout today. He is only 14th in the end. Peter Kummer was 15th, and Chad Casion barely finishes ahead of Gerbino there in 16th and 17th, respectively. Sherburne was 18th, and Dale Green 19th, while Steve Komatz rounds out your first 20 cars. Second half of the field sees Jonathan Reber in 21st, with Charlie Fair in 22nd. Then it's Christian Braun in 23rd, followed by Devin Hopkins in 24th. After that, Dean Chapman gets your quarter century mark. Peter Sigourney was 26. These are all cars that are a lap down, obviously. Anthony James in 27th, and Kevin Orr 28th. Marcel Eunice 29th, and Jeremy Hall finishes in 30th today. Last few drivers sees Kevin Schultz in 31st, Christopher Hopkins in 32nd, and Andy Jenks. I believe our first DNF, Sunday, Doran, Harmon, Rondeau, Bowers, and Snelling having a pretty forgettable today out there, as this track took a lot of victims. But one it was not able to claim was Kellen Heimbecker, who finally gets to stand on the top step. Is this a monkey off your back? You've been so close all season.
Boy, this is actually my first PCA win. I'm super excited. I've been working really hard. Oftentimes Ryan is right in front of me, and we're pretty good friends, and he's a great guy to chase. He's helped me learn. He's practiced with me. We talk about strategy and stuff, and it feels really good today to come out on top.
I saw the gap up to 15 seconds at its highest, but in the last few minutes or so, it kind of came down and came down. Now, were the nerves getting to you, or were you intentionally backing off?
I would say kind of both. I thought to myself, hey, I've got a pretty good gap. I don't want to throw it away trying to be fast. So I started to try and be conservative, and slowing down, started to make mistakes. And I started to think to myself, hey, you got to get it together, or we're going to throw this away on a simple mistake. And I was fine losing a little bit of time, but luckily no major incidents.
Well, let's look away from the negative emotions towards the positive here, because this obviously for any driver who finally gets that first win is usually a huge confidence boost. What are you feeling right now, and what do you think this does for your future?
It feels like my practice strategy has been paying off. It feels good. I'm kind of overwhelmed a little bit with emotions right now, and I'm really excited for the next race. It takes some of the stress off because I think it puts me in a pretty good points position, and maybe I can relax a little bit and just kind of come into that a little bit more lighthearted.
I hope so too. I mean, you have reason to feel lighthearted. Go and celebrate your first win, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks to the sponsors, Princess Cruises, and all the folks that help out and who are listening to me right now.
That was Kellen Heimbecker, who definitely seems happy to finally have that first win. Meanwhile, I do believe that our second place, Ryan Cowley, is going to be talking to Ron Mons.
And yes, he is Ryan Cowley joining us here in the booth. Ryan, welcome in. P2 for you here at Zolder. I want to ask you about how it was tackling this track that proved to be a bit of a beast here tonight.
Yeah, this is the most difficult track. Like I was on the wheel the whole time. It doesn't look that hard, but the car is just on edge on every corner. There's just no relaxing. Like it's so edgy.
Yeah, just a relentless assault on the car. You always have to worry about the next turn, and no turn around this racetrack is like the ones that came before it. This may be an odd question to ask. I don't think I've really asked this before on the show. What do you think was the most challenging turn on this racetrack, if you can name one single one that caught you at the most?
I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of it. Jack. Well, I told you I'm not going to say it, but it's the one with the giant black sausages, because like the left side will kill you and the right side will launch you. But for me, I feel like I got the rhythm on that pretty good. But going into the really heavy right-hander, like the car was just on edgy. I just could not get the brakes. It did not like heavy braking. It was really skittish.
Yeah, I can imagine, even so, with the cold conditions that we had throughout this race as well, just a lot of things piling into one that made this a very difficult race. But you walk away with a P2, must be feeling good when it comes to the championship. And just to end off this season here for Series 14 on a high note, we head off to VIR next time out.
Yeah, well, congratulations to Kellen. Congratulations to Jay Martins. I about killed him going into pit road, and then when I was out and he entered pit road, he kind of rolled over for me. I felt like he probably could have forced the issue a little bit and kept that position. So congratulations to both of those guys, and VIR for the finale. Here we come.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what you're gonna do there at VIR. But man, thank you for joining us here in the booth. Congratulations on the P2, and looking forward to seeing you out there at VIR next time out, Ryan.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Princess Cruise and PCA Sim Racing.
Yep, and thank you as well.
That takes us to our third place finisher, James Martin, who was also in that big group of cars, about four of them all together there at the end, all vying for podium positions. Was that stressful, being so close to some fast competitors there in the dying stages, James?
Yeah, absolutely. You're racing in the dark, and you're just, I tucked in behind Ryan and used his lights the last 5 laps. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, but yeah, a little stressful.
And a half second at the end between the two of you to decide that P2. Were there any temptations to give it one last go in the final corner?
Yeah, I kind of gave it up there when he came out of the pits, and that's on me. But, Ryan's fast, and so tucking in behind him, podium position, that's awesome.
Glad to hear that you're still feeling satisfied regardless. How do you feel about VIR, though, next time? It's definitely a bit of a different nature compared to what we've got here.
Yeah, I feel like with so many of these things, it's just about the qualifying. If you can get out kind of, in that first 2-3 positions, you can avoid some of the stuff that happens. And I didn't do that the last couple of races, quite frankly. But VIR is awesome. It'll be fun in the Cup car, so it'll be a blast.
I can confirm it is a fantastic track for these cars. Well, again, congratulations, James. That is a podium finish today.
Thank you very much. And a shout out to Nicky with last 10th. He's been awesome for me.
So James Martin finishing P3 this time around. And yeah, I've gotten to see the cars at VIR, both here in the sim and in real life. And they put on a stunner of a show. So that is going to be our next race. It'll be December 4th that the club class heads off to Old Dominion, and make sure and join us for that one, as well as for our next race here at Zolder. That'll be Wednesday night, November 19th for the sport class. In the meantime, a big thank you to you, the viewer, tuning in. I'm Joe Peak. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.